of today's panel is Hinduism and the Hindutva movement. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our two really eminent panelists, Ratan Shardaji and Dr. D.K. Hari and Hema Hariji. Welcome. And I'm so delighted to have all of you here to talk to us about this important topic. And I will first introduce Dr. D.K. Hariji and Hema Hariji, who are actually exploring the civilizational aspect for the last couple of decades, And so they are both corporate professionals who gave up that for their calling and decided to explore the civilizational, Indic civilization through our own Indic lens. And I have attended their sessions on Bharath Gyan, a portal that they run, and through University of America. They are teachers in both these places and in art of living as well. So I have been floored by some of the information that they have shared. They are authors of various books. They write blogs. They've written so many articles, and these are phenomenal because of the fact that all our media is basically, inundated with very different contexts, whereas their portal talks about it through a Indic civilizational lens. So welcome, D.K. Hariji and Himaji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Richa Gautam, for this very nice introduction. I'd also like to thank Dr. Jai Bansal for inviting us to be part of this panel, and to Shri Kalyan Vishwanathan for informing us about this wonderful program. So getting on to the subject of the day, we thought, as was mentioned, the three keywords or the few keywords. The word Hind, how did it come about? The word Hindu, how did it come about? The Hinduism, how did Hinduism come about? And that leading on to Hindutva. We were just going to look at these four for the next, as she said, 15 minutes, as Mr. Cha said, 15 minutes. We look at this. We will show you different aspects of these four words and then try to understand, because that is the fundamental basis for us to understand. Because when you start to understand something, we should know what are we trying to say. So we look at that now. So we'll actually show you a very short film for about 120 seconds or so on how the word Hind came about. We made this film about 10 years ago. We'll just show it to you briefly, how the word Hind actually came to be. We'll share screen now.
How and when did Bharat get the name India?
In the Persian language, the syllable sa was pronounced as her. So the Persians and Arabs who came east towards the river Sindhu called the land around and beyond the river Sindhu as Hind. From this came Hindu, Hindustan. As the word Hind traveled west towards Greece from Persia, in the Greek language, H was interchangeable with I, thus Hind became Ind, Inde. Greek scholars of 200 BCE, Hutinga and Ptolemy both show India as Indi in their maps.
Thereafter, the term Hindi, Inde, India came to be.
So we see here how from the river Sindh, which is there in our national anthem, when we sing Jana Gana Mana, we have the term Sindh in it. And we have a province called Sindh, of which Karachi was the old capital, where all the Sindhis lived. So from that, how the phrase morphed to become Hind, and thereon it went. So it moved from area to area, across civilizations, across centuries, across tongues. So that's how we got the term Hind. And from there on, we got the term Hindu. Now let's see how we got the term Hindu, because we all are Hindus. But how did we get the term Hindu, first of all?
So we also see that this word Hind actually has its roots from a geographical concept, the river Sindh and the geography around it. And now we shall just go into a couple of people who have shown us how the word Hindu has been coined and used.
See, if you look at the term Hinduism, you can see it was roughly coined about 200 years ago, actually by the Christian missionaries, to identify the Indic religions. So that is how it came about. And here are some people who so look at this. This is a famous author who has written this book, The Meaning and End of Religions, in which he very clearly writes, he's a Canadian and he's a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences.
And he says that the term Hinduism is a particularly false conception, one that is conspicuously incompatible with any adequate understanding of the religious outlook of Hindus. Even the term Hindu was unknown to the classical Hindus. Hinduism as a concept they certainly did not have. There are Hindus, but there is no Hinduism.
And he goes on to say,
it was probably first imagined by the British in the early part of the 19th century to describe and create and control.
Look at the key word here, to control.
An enormously complex configuration of people and their traditions found in the South Asian subcontinent. So fundamentally, a term to actually describe the confusion that they had. And
he goes on to write,
and
page 9.
Actually, we'll just go to the bottom line. It's solely the creation of the scholar's study. So when they were trying to describe this religion from a scholastic perspective, that is when they come up with this idea and the term Hinduism to club all the commonality that they are able to see in the diverseness, the diversity that exists.
And here's a person, Frankenberg, who writes,
there has never been any one religion or even one system of religions to which the term Hindu can be accurately applied. No one so-called religion, moreover, can lay exclusive claim to be or to be defined by the term Hinduism. The very notion of the existence of any single religious community by this name, one may further argue, has been falsely conceived. And he says so beautifully that newly coined concept of Hinduism to scholars in the Enlightenment, from Nathaniel Brassey, Halhead, and William Jones to Max Muller. So fundamentally, he's showing how this term is coming about when the scholars are trying to understand and describe, understand, classify, in order to be able to control the diverse nature that is existing in the Bharat that they have encountered.
So this is actually a book called Hinduism Reconsidered. Look at that. So they are trying to control our viewpoint, and we get on to now Richard King. Look at what he speaks about Orientalism religions.
And he says Hindu, in fact, only came into prominence among Westerners in the 18th century. Although there were references in the 18th century to the religion of the Gentus. So note here, the term Gentu, like other terms, functioned as an alternative to heathen.
Look at this term Gentu. Before they called us Hindus, they called us Gentus. And do you know what this term Gentu means? It means in the Indian languages, Jantu. Jantu means creepy, crawly creatures. So they originally called all Hindus creepy, crawly creatures, detestable creatures, and then they gave an honorific term to us. So the Hindu is actually a very honorific term that they coined for us. Now let's see how this came about. So look at how they have step by step, they have tried to trample upon us, control us.
The key to the West's initial postulation of the unity of Hinduism derives from the Judeo-Christian presuppositions of the Orientalists and missionaries, and especially their conviction that distinctive religions could not coexist without frequent antagonism. So they are applying their lens that how can religions coexist? So there cannot be so much diversity without antagonism. So if they are not, so there is, look at the hidden line that's coming out, that despite this diversity, there is so much of harmony that they are seeing, and that they are in disbelief that how can there be so much of harmony when there is this diversity, and that the relatively peaceful coexistence of the various Hindu movements could not be explained without some sense of religious unity. So they ascribe this religious unity with the term Hindu.
Look at this. See, they are coming out of dark ages. So they had 1,000 years of dark ages, and then they have had the Crusades. So there's animosity behind religion. So they are applying a Abrahamic lens on Hinduism and creating a term for it. So very clearly, so it's quite apparent there. So it's a Judeo-Christian tradition they are trying to apply on us. And going on to Ziegelbalg. He's a German. He writes a book called Malabarische Heathendom. See what he says in this.
So he says primarily you can see sects, and he says all the inhabitants, he calls them the main sects.
Haupt, obviously, the German means main.
Hauptsekten. And of course, he sees only Shaivism and Vaishnavism, but there are many more as we know. And he says all the inhabitants of the whole earth are divided into four main religions, Hauptreligionen. Thus, there are Jews, Christians, Mohammedans, and heathens. So it is to this heathen that they ascribe, and to the heathens in South Asia, as they call it. So all the heathens in this part of the world, which they are encountering for the first time, he says the heathens make up the largest of these four main, but they are, however, not uniform. And East Indian heathens are once again divided into different sects. So these heathens are what they end up calling as Hindus.
Hindus. So where did they get the name Hindus from? How did they suddenly coin a name Hindu? 200 years ago is what we have to see.
And looking at the underlying meaning of the word, if you look at what is heathen, it is from a Germanic word, one who lived in the country or on the heaths, moors, and in the woods. And therefore, in their thought, considered to be uncultured.
So they came and cultured us. Look at the idea.
And pagan as a country dweller or villager, nature worshippers. So when they see these kind of aspects in the people in these parts of the world, where it is so lush and green and tropical, and a lot of villages and farmers, and so they group everybody as heathens, and then they assign the word Hindu.
First is heathens, then Jantu, then Hindu. Now we'll see how they got the word Hindu. Look at this.
So it is not that the word Hindu did not exist before at all. In the 1300s itself, you see Isami, who was a medieval historian, he has used a couple of terms, one which is Hinduan and one which is Indian. So he says the people of India, the inhabitants of India, whether they are Muslims or Hindus, they are Hindian because they are in the region of Hind.
Geography.
And in amongst these people, those who are non-Muslim inhabitants of this region, he calls them Hinduan. So from here, it was very easy for the British to get the word Hindu and assign it to the people of this part of the world.
Heathens are the Jantus, okay? And we have one more person, this Urdu poet, Amir Khusro, Persian Urdu poet, who had a Turki father and a Rajput mother, and he brings in the word Hindustani and Hindwai. Look at that. He brings in this. So these are how the terms came about. So if you look at this, what comes out to us is none of these terms are actually ours. It was given to us. Given this, let's see how do we classify it as a single religion is what we need to see.
So while they categorized the people initially, how did it get formalized into a religion per se? Is one we have seen from the British because of their administrative reasons, and later by the Indian Constitution itself.
So if you look at Hindu law per se, it comes from Henry Maine. So he started speaking to the scholars of India, and he created the law for Hindu religion. So actually, the Hindu law comes from Maine's law. That's how it comes to us. And if you see further from there, the Supreme Court of India picks it up from the Maine's law, and then they cement the whole process of Hinduism.
So it becomes, so they say that it is difficult, if not impossible, to define Hindu religion or even adequately describe it. The Hindu religion does not claim any prophet. It does not worship any one God, not subscribe to any one dogma, any one philosophic concept, religious rites or performance, and so on. So they go on to say it may broadly be described as a way of life and nothing more.
And in 1966, look at this. So they very clearly say it's not like any religion, but they make it one. Look at this strong statement again. This is by the Supreme Court of India once again.
See, from time to time, saints and religious reformers attempted to remove from the Hindu thoughts and practices elements of corruption and superstition, and that led to the formation of different sects. Buddha started Buddhism, Mahavir founded Jainism, Basava became the founder of Lingayat religion, Dhyaneshwar and Tukaram initiated the Varkari cult, Guru Nanak Sikhism, Dayananda with Arya Samaj, Chaitanya Bhakti cult. And as a result of the teaching of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda, Hindu religion flowered into its most attractive, progressive, and dynamic form. Keep in mind these words, attractive, progressive, and dynamic. If we study the teachings of these saints and religious reformers, we would notice an amount of divergence in their respective views, but under that divergence, there is a kind of subtle, indescribable unity which keeps them within the sweep of the broad and progressive religion. So this is fundamentally what people notice in Hinduism, and they say that it has been a progressive religion because time and again it has evolved, it has adapted to the change around them in ecology, environment, in fundamentally the nature around them, as well as the nature of the people. And this is what is Sanatana Dharma, which is what we have actually been following in this land from eons.
Eons. And the word Sanatana, if you look at the word, the Sanatana means eternal, ever young, as well as ancient. See, so two ends of the spectrum. One spectrum, end of the spectrum, you call it ancient. Another end of the spectrum, you call it ever young. That means what? It can reinvent itself every day, in tune with the times, in tune with science, in tune with reality. So scientificness, Vijnana, is very important for the Hindu thought, Dharma. And it's Dharma, that which bears you, your character, not just conduct limitedly, but Dharma that bears you.
So this is what we have actually been following. And fundamentally, we have to realize that we also have a term. So while we have been following Sanatana Dharma, we have lived as per Dharma, we have a separate term for religion, which is called Mata, which comes from applying your intellect.
Mati. So we have a term for religion, that is Mata, that's not Dharma. Dharma is your character. Then going on to this, the word Hindutva, which is what our friend Dr. Ratan Shah is taking on from here. So we'll just show you in a minute. So normally the term Hindutva is what most people say is attributed to Veer Savarkar, and in his book 1923, the book Hindutva. But if you look at it, actually, it goes before that. It goes back to probably these three people and Chandranath Basu, who wrote this book in 1892, 40 years before that, in this particular book, where he brings the term Hindutva. So what does this term mean, actually, Hindutva then? The way your Shiva Tatva and the different.
Yeah. So fundamentally, when you use a Tva with a word, it denotes the essence of it. So Shiva, and then you have the Shiva Tatva. Then when you say Mahat, something that is great, and then you have Mahatva, so the greatness. So like that, the Hindu-ness, that is the essence of Hindu thought, and that is the principles of and the concepts which are in the Hindu Dharma. So Hindutva is nothing but that which tries to bring to fore the essence in Hindu Dharma. Out of all this myriad diversity, what is the commonality that is underlying all these diverse practices, beliefs and thoughts and ideas? What is that one commonness, and how do you define it? And we have seen many people are saying it is impossible to define it, but even so, in that, what is that one commonness that can hold everybody together? That is what Hindutva is all about.
In this key point is what we are seeing is now, not only is our religion being named by others, the terms of our religion others are trying to give us. And look at now what they are saying is, Hindutva is bad, but Hindu is okay. Again, they are trying to divide us and try to hold it. So that is where it's all coming down to now. So we see a continuity across 200 years of the other person, the other trying to say who we should be. I'll show you a slide, very important, just a simple slide. What's happening is the concept of other. Look at this. There's a concept of other. Just show you 1 second. What's happening is, look at this. The concept of other is very important to understand among religions. So what the other is deciding who we will be. And if you look at actually the Hindu society, what is the biggest question that we have in Hinduism? Who am I? Tatva, who am I? Right? Whereas they are deciding for us and telling us who we are. That's the beauty of it. So they are deciding for us and saying who we are. So instead of becoming Tatva, it's becoming some others are deciding for us. So the essence of Hinduism, Dharma, is to search for ourselves. Who am I is an eternal question. And this question has been asked by us, not today, not yesterday, not 200 years back, but from the moment of creation. When creation happened, when the Big Bang happened, when the Hiranyagarbha, the cosmic egg, broke open, who was there? At that time, you had Vishnu, from whose navel Brahma came, right? And what is the first question that Brahma asks of the only other person there, Vishnu? He says, who am I? So it's an eternal question, who am I? So, who art thou? So, who am I? That's a question. And so there's a discussion between the father and son.
And even there, he's unwilling to accept the answer and goes on his own search.
So that is how it comes up as that. So this particular point, which is how you have the story in Shiva Purana of the Lingodbhava and Brahma going up and Vishnu going south and all those. You have the story. So that's there. We discussed the book. But the point is, this question of who am I and the search is an integral part of Hindu thought. And it's not just no teacher or guru can guide you there. The who am I is very personal. In contrast, we have the other deciding for us as to who we all will be collectively. So they're deciding what is Hinduism, they're deciding what is Hindutva, they're deciding this, they're deciding that, they're deciding everything for us, and they're saying, you are that. We are saying, who am I itself is an eternal question. And they are saying, you are this. So the other is playing into us now. That is what I think we have to grasp, understand, and this is time of realization, because if you're getting into knowledge era, we have to discuss this with knowledge, with the fundamentals of knowing the term Hind, knowing the term Hindu, knowing the term Hinduism, and thereon knowing the term Hindutva, and fundamentally knowing all this, we can take forward in a healthy discussion, engage people, engage with the other, with our knowledge, and say, you don't define us anymore. You have done it for 200 years, but we have regained our strength. We will define ourselves and say who we are. And that's for the external world. But internally, we'll again continue to search who am I.
Keep evolving.
Keep evolving. So that is why Sanatana, the ancientest of the religions, plus the youngest of the religions, ever young, it's born even today. That is Sanatana, Dharma, that which bears.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Wonderful. And, just the understanding the epistemology of those terms and going back to the dharmic question of who am I, right? We are all about the experiential reality and seeking. So thank you for that, decolonizing perspective. And I will quickly invite Ratan Shardaji to give us his perspective on Hindutva. So Ratan Shardaji, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Richa ji. Thanks, Jai Bansal ji. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on from where you are connecting. I am connecting from Bharath. And I must thank Hari ji and Hema ji for 20 minutes of high-powered, high-potency condensed capsule about Hindu Dharma, Hinduism, and whatnot in the name of Hindu. And as he rightly said, we are the only society which is defined by others. They decide what we are not. And it is time we snatched back our right to define ourselves and decide what we are or tell people what we are. Because there's enough. There is no other religion or society where the insiders are not invited, but outsiders tell you what you are.
And I think we are accepting questions at this time. We do have 10 minutes. So I will ask the first question to DK Hariji and Hema Hariji, which is here by Arun Garg. He has asked a question, given that the word Hindu is an aberration and interpretation by foreign groups, what should we call ourselves? Should we continue with this Hindu as a term, or should we call ourselves Vedic, Sanatan Dharma? What is the answer to this? Hariji and Himaji.
Thank you, Richaji. It's a good question, and it's been asked by many people many times. See, whether we like it or not, English is the language we speak in the world over, because it's become the language, the commerce language of the world. Similarly, like that, whether we like it or not, Hindu is a name we have been called, and we have been calling ourselves for 200 years. Okay, and it's a name given to us by people who came to see us. So that name stands. But at the same time, we should not lose our term Dharma or Sanatana, which is the fundamental basis of it. So Sanatana Dharma, Hindu Dharma, and all this. If you look at the Indian constitution, what do we say? Bharat, that is India. So our country has very clearly two names. Like that, we can have two religions, Hinduism and Sanatana Dharma or Hindu Dharma. All these names fundamentally, finally, at the end of the day mean the same. What is important is we need to understand the meanings of it, the Tatva behind it, the principles in it, the concepts in it, the roles in it, the nuances in it, so that we can live as per science, we can live as per our own personal realization, recognition as to who am I, and live in synchronization with nature. See, living in synchronization with nature, living as per your dharma, which is what you bear, your character, that is what is real Hinduism. So you may call rose by any name, but it is a rose. Like that, Hinduism is a name that's come to stay. Hindu Dharma is a name that we can use the word Dharma and Hindu and make it Hindu Dharma, which is what they have done in Australia officially. They call them Hindu, they call themselves Hindu Dharma, the Hindus. Similarly, Sanatana Dharma is a traditional name that we had, because these are religions. For religions, as Dr. Hema said sometime back, it's Mata, Mati. And we had Shad Mata. Adi Sankara himself recognizes Shad Mata, the six Mata, Mati. So those are religions. Hindu Dharma is there. So we have to understand the nuances of all these things and take it forward. Incidentally, all this we've written in a book called Brand Bharat. It's there for all to read.
You know, can we make our children not lose interest? I think that is one of the questions in understanding ourselves and, keeping our identity. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Richaji. It's a very important question that you asked. So what's happening is they're losing interest because it's all too very covered nowadays. We need to understand the core basics and make it simple for them to get interested, which is why each of the terms that we have in our lexicon or the way we do things, I think we should understand the core of each term and explain it to our family members and simplify it to understand it at a very fundamental level, so that then they start seeing the value in it. Now, what's happening is most of the practices and terms, we are using a Western meaning to it, so it gets clouded. But if you go to the core meaning, each one is so nice, simple, profound.
And consistent.
Yes, consistent with nature, consistent with your humanity, consistent with your humanness, consistent with science, consistent with living. Once we start using original terms and understanding the original meaning of it, then they will start seeing the beauty in our mati, our intellect, which now we use the word religion, because religion is a very, very, again, a European word. You need to use mati, because religion says you follow. See, fundamentally two things, what they use the word faith and belief. Faith means whether it's right or wrong, you have faith in it, you accept it. Belief is you believe it, whether right or wrong. Whereas Hinduism doesn't use the word faith or belief. The two terms has been imposed on Hinduism. Whereas what we say is have your mati, your intellect. You find out for yourself, and if it is fit for use, use it. That is where Hinduism will stand out. That is where the youth will explain this in the right perspective to them, and they will all understand and take it up as their personal life style, personal life mission of understanding and living in synchronization with science and in synchronization with nature.